Have you ever wondered what really happens when you stop chasing? When you stop sending the first message, stop begging for attention, and simply match the same energy he's been giving you? Many people think silence means giving up, but sometimes silence is the loudest message you can send. One of the first things that often happens when you match a man is distance, is that he notices the change, even if he doesn't admit it right away. Human beings naturally become accustomed to patterns, especially in relationships. If you've always been the one reaching out first, checking in, making plans, or keeping conversations alive, your sudden shift in behavior creates an unexpected silence. That silence can feel unfamiliar because it breaks the routine he has come to expect. At first, he may assume you're simply busy or distracted, but as more time passes without hearing from you, curiosity begins to replace certainty. Many people underestimate how much their consistent presence becomes part of someone else's daily life. When that presence is no longer there, it leaves a gap that is difficult to ignore. He may find himself checking his phone more often than usual, wondering why there isn't a new message from you. He might replay recent conversations in his mind, searching for clues about what changed. Even if he appeared emotionally distant before, your decision to stop chasing forces him to experience what life feels like without your constant attention. This isn't about creating drama or playing emotional games. It's about allowing the relationship to reveal its true balance. When one person always carries the emotional weight, the other rarely realizes how much effort is being invested. Once that effort is removed, the difference becomes impossible to overlook. Suddenly, he has to decide whether he values the connection enough to contribute instead of simply receiving. Matching his distance also sends a quiet but powerful message about your self-respect. It shows that you recognize your time, energy, and emotions have value. Rather than continuing to seek attention from someone who isn't matching your effort, you choose to protect your peace. That confidence often speaks louder than repeated explanations or emotional conversations, because actions reveal what words sometimes cannot. Curiosity has a unique way of growing in silence. When you stop chasing, stop constantly checking in, and begin matching the level of effort he's giving, something unexpected often happens inside his mind. The certainty he once had begins to disappear. If he was used to knowing that you would always be there, always respond immediately, or always make the first move after a disagreement, your change in behavior interrupts that expectation. People naturally pay more attention when something familiar suddenly changes. Instead of focusing on what you're doing for him, he may begin wondering what you're doing without him. Questions start forming that he never felt the need to ask before. Is she losing interest? Has she moved on emotionally? Is she spending more time with friends or focusing on herself? Did I take her attention for granted? These thoughts can become surprisingly persistent because the human mind dislikes uncertainty. When answers aren't readily available, curiosity fills the empty space. This is especially true when someone has grown comfortable with receiving attention without having to earn it. Once that attention is no longer guaranteed, its value often becomes much more obvious. He may start checking your social media more frequently, looking for clues about your life. He may notice that you're no longer waiting for his messages or reacting to every little thing he does. Instead of you wondering what he's thinking, he begins wondering what you're thinking. The important thing to understand is that genuine confidence isn't about trying to make someone jealous or manipulating their emotions. It's about redirecting your energy toward your own life instead of constantly seeking reassurance from someone else. When your happiness no longer depends on their response, you naturally become more attractive because you demonstrate emotional independence. Curiosity is powerful because it shifts the emotional dynamic. Rather than constantly explaining your worth, you allow your absence to create space for reflection. People often appreciate consistency only after they experience what life feels like without it. By choosing self-respect over chasing, you encourage a healthier balance where effort must be mutual, not one-sided. Sometimes the questions that arise in someone's mind after your silence become far more meaningful than any conversation you could have forced. When the constant communication slows down and you stop carrying the emotional weight of the relationship, many men are left alone with something they may have been avoiding all along: their own thoughts. Without daily conversations, endless messages, or your consistent efforts to keep the connection alive, there is finally room for reflection. Silence has a way of bringing clarity that constant noise never can. It creates space where excuses become harder to maintain and honest self-evaluation begins. He may start replaying past conversations in his mind, remembering moments that seemed ordinary at the time but now carry a different meaning. He recalls the times you encouraged him when he doubted himself, the patience you showed during difficult moments, and the little things you did simply because you cared. These memories often become more significant once they are no longer part of his everyday life. What was once taken for granted suddenly feels valuable because it is no longer guaranteed. Reflection also forces him to consider his own role in the relationship. Instead of focusing on what you should have done differently, he may begin asking himself uncomfortable questions. Did I stop appreciating her efforts? Did I become emotionally unavailable? Was I too comfortable knowing she would always be there? Could I have communicated better? These questions don't always lead to immediate change, but they often plant the seeds of personal growth. Sometimes people only recognize their mistakes after they experience the consequences of their actions. This is why matching someone's distance should never be about punishment or revenge. It isn't about making another person suffer. It's about stepping back and allowing reality to speak for itself. When one person constantly fills every silence, the other rarely has the opportunity to recognize what they contribute or fail to contribute to the relationship. By no longer overcompensating, you give both yourself and the other person a chance to see the relationship more honestly. At the same time, you begin your own journey of reflection. You realize that love should never require you to carry everything alone. Healthy relationships thrive on shared effort, mutual respect, and open communication. By choosing not to chase someone who isn't meeting you halfway, you demonstrate emotional maturity and self-worth. Whether his reflection leads him back to you or inspires him to become a better person. Elsewhere, your decision to value yourself becomes one of the most important steps toward building relationships based on balance rather than sacrifice. As time passes and your absence becomes more noticeable, he may begin to feel the emotional gap that your presence once filled. When someone is consistently part of another person's life, it's easy for their value to become overlooked. Daily conversations, thoughtful messages, words of encouragement, and simple acts of kindness can slowly become expected instead of appreciated. But when those things suddenly disappear, the empty space they leave behind often becomes impossible to ignore. What once felt ordinary now feels missing. He may begin noticing the little moments where you naturally fit into his day. Perhaps you were the first person he shared good news with, the one who checked on him after a difficult day, or the person who made him laugh when life became stressful. These habits create emotional comfort, even if they were never openly acknowledged. Once that comfort is gone, everyday routines can start feeling quieter than before. He may instinctively reach for his phone, expecting to see your message, only to realize the silence is real. That realization can make him recognize how much your presence contributed to his emotional well-being. Missing someone isn't always about dramatic heartbreak. More often, it's the accumulation of small moments that suddenly feel incomplete. He may miss your support during stressful situations, your ability to listen without judgment, or the sense of stability your attention provided. These are the qualities that often go unnoticed until they are no longer available. Distance has a way of revealing the importance of things that familiarity once hid. This emotional gap also encourages a new perspective. Instead of assuming your care and attention will always be there, he begins to understand that relationships require effort from both people. Affection, trust, and emotional support are not endless resources that should be taken for granted. They grow stronger through appreciation and mutual investment. When one person continuously gives while the other simply receives, the relationship eventually becomes unbalanced. Your decision to step back shines a light on that imbalance. Most importantly, creating distance allows you to reconnect with yourself instead of measuring your worth by someone else's attention. While you may begin realizing what your absence feels like, you are discovering the peace that comes from protecting your own emotional energy. Whether he chooses to close that emotional gap or not, you have already taken an important step toward healthier relationships, ones where your presence is valued, your effort is reciprocated, and your kindness is appreciated rather than expected. One of the most powerful changes that can happen when you match his distance is that he begins to see your boundaries in a completely different light. Many people confuse constant availability with love, but genuine love is never about sacrificing your self-respect. When you stop chasing, stop over-explaining, and stop trying to convince someone to value you, you quietly communicate that your time, emotions, and energy matter. This shift often earns a level of respect that endless effort alone could never achieve. In many relationships, one person unintentionally becomes responsible for maintaining the connection. They send the first message, apologize even when they are not at fault, make the plans, and continue giving despite receiving very little in return. Over time, this imbalance can create an unhealthy expectation that they will always be there, no matter how little effort the other person puts in. But the moment you establish healthy boundaries and refuse to carry the relationship alone, that expectation is challenged. He begins to realize that your attention was a privilege, not a guarantee. Confidence is often misunderstood. It is not about acting cold, pretending not to care, or trying to make someone jealous. Real confidence is calm. It is the ability to walk away from situations that consistently drain your peace without feeling the need to prove your worth. When you respect yourself enough to stop accepting one-sided effort, you show emotional strength. That quiet confidence can be far more impactful than emotional arguments or repeated requests for change. Healthy boundaries also encourage accountability. Instead of relying on your endless patience, he is faced with the reality that relationships require equal participation. If he truly values the connection, he understands that rebuilding trust and closeness requires action, not empty promises. Respect grows when both people recognize that love is supported by consistency, honesty, and mutual effort rather than convenience. At the same time, setting boundaries transforms your own mindset. You stop waiting for someone else's attention to determine your happiness. You begin investing in your personal growth, your goals, and your emotional well-being. This creates a stronger version of yourself, someone who knows that love should never require constant chasing or begging for the bare minimum. Whether he chooses to step forward with genuine effort or continues walking away, your boundaries protect your peace and remind you that the healthiest relationships are built on mutual respect, shared commitment, and equal emotional investment. The greatest transformation doesn't happen inside his mind. It happens within you. While it's natural to wonder whether he misses you, thinks about you, or regrets his choices, the real victory begins when your focus shifts away from his actions and back to your own life. Matching his distance is not the finish line. It's the beginning of rediscovering your confidence, your purpose, and your happiness. Instead of spending your energy chasing someone who isn't matching your effort, You begin investing that energy in becoming the best version of yourself. As you redirect your attention, your priorities start to change. You spend more time pursuing your goals, strengthening your relationships with family and friends, learning new skills, improving your health, or simply enjoying moments that bring you peace. Every positive step you take reminds you that your identity is much bigger than one relationship. Your happiness no longer depends on whether someone texts you back, calls you first, or chooses to stay. It comes from knowing that your value exists regardless of another person's decisions. Ironically, this is often when people begin to notice the biggest difference in you. Confidence that grows from genuine self-improvement is impossible to fake. You carry yourself differently because you're no longer seeking constant reassurance. Your conversations become more positive, your mindset becomes stronger, and your emotional stability becomes more attractive than any attempt to impress someone. Whether he sees this growth through mutual friends, social media, or future interactions, he recognizes that you have continued moving forward instead of remaining stuck in disappointment. More importantly, your personal growth prepares you for healthier relationships in the future. You develop higher standards, stronger boundaries, and a clearer understanding of what mutual effort truly looks like. You stop accepting inconsistency as a sign of love and begin recognizing that healthy relationships are built on trust, respect, communication, and shared commitment. This change protects you from repeating old patterns because you've learned the importance of choosing people who willingly invest in you. The most powerful outcome is that you no longer measure success by whether he comes back. If he returns with genuine maturity, accountability, and consistent effort, you can evaluate the relationship from a place of confidence rather than desperation. If he never returns, you haven't lost. You've gained self-respect, emotional strength, and a deeper appreciation for your own worth. The happiest people are not those who convince someone to love them. They are the ones who refuse to abandon themselves in the process. When you choose growth over chasing, peace over anxiety, and self-respect over settling, you create a future where your happiness is no longer controlled by someone else's. As choices, but by the life you intentionally build for yourself.